Hey everybody, welcome back to the Drum Mission. Doing this a little bit different today. I think from now on I'm going to do all my talking head videos this way. I don't know why I didn't do this before. I could have. I just didn't think of it because I'm not the brightest. I really don't. This is so cool. So welcome back to part 2 of Jim Gordon, his great talent and his great tragedy. And in part 1, we really talked about his talent. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But today, really, we're going to center on the tragedy. Let me do a little recap. So in the first video, we talked a lot about the disease he had, which was schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia. But let's talk about his career, a recap of the career, because we did talk a lot about that in part 1. So in a brief synopsis, he's playing the clubs as a teenager. He's still in high school. He gets discovered. He starts touring with the Everly Brothers. The Everly Brothers take him into the studio, and he meets Hal Blaine, who is one of the great session drummers of our time. Hal Blaine takes a liking to him, and the next thing you know, and he starts working with everyone. The Monkees, Sinatra, both Frank and Nancy, Ella Fitzgerald, Barbra Streisand. I mean, you name it, he's working with them. The Beach Boys, the Carpenters, tons of jingles. He was doing approximately 3 sessions a day, 6 days a week. For the 60s and the 70s, he was making about $1,400 a week. He ends up working with Eric Clapton. He's the drummer on Layla. He's the drummer with Mason Williams on Classical Gas, the very famous 60s pop song, one of the most famous. He cuts it in 3 hours. It's a crazy classical tune with a lot of odd meters. He plays with Zappa sometimes, Steely Dan, you name. He's a drummer on Ricky, Don't Lose That Number. He did so many recordings, so many. I mean, more than hundreds, probably in the area of thousands. I mean, 3 sessions a day, 6 days a week, from the early 60s to the mid 70s, that's a lot of time. But as he's doing that, he's gaining a reputation. It said they were never sure who was going to show up. Now, not so much in the beginning. In the beginning, the schizophrenia did not manifest quite so much or quite so drastically. So this is the guy that would show up most of the time. Happy, loved to play, easy to work with. A producer could tell him, I'm thinking of something like this, or I'm thinking of something like that. You're So Vain. You're So Vain by Carly Simon. They had like 6 of the drummers they tried on it. And Jim gets in there and does this simple thing in the first verse of just hitting the bass drum on 1 and 3. And the producer loves it, and the song goes to number 1. Everything he did was like that. He could find, it wasn't about that he was playing these great wild things. He could find just the right thing that worked for the tune, that would make the tune feel right, feel good, and everybody wanted to use him. But again, that reputation got bigger and bigger because it got more frequent, where you didn't know who was going to show up in the studio, they said. Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. And that's what they would say about him. Mr. Hyde was paranoid. Mr. Hyde would blame other musicians for any mistake he made and claim that they were using telepathy or sending out bad vibes to make him drag the time or rush the time or all sorts of things like that. It wasn't just complaining. He would get physical. He body checked a few people, and he was a tall, big guy. He was close to 6'5". I mean, he was a big guy, and when he would get angry at someone, it was intimidating. So in order to combat the voices, and this happened when he was with Clapton, really, because this was the rock and roll and the drug culture, he would use cocaine and heroin, and that would quiet down the voices in his head, quiet down the hallucinations. But then when the booze or the drugs wore off, they would come back, and they would come back worse. And because of the booze and drugs, he starts missing sessions. So imagine you're a producer, and you're paying $250, $300 an hour for the studio time. And Jim doesn't show, or he shows up 2 or 3 hours late. and he shows up drunk or high. And you don't know how he's going to play because of that. Well, if he doesn't show up, you got to find another drummer. And now you've got the studio booked maybe for 5 or 6 hours. You already wasted 2 hours waiting for him, trying to find him. Now you got to waste another hour getting another drummer. So what happens is Jim Keltner, Jeff Percaro, Bernard Purdy start taking all the sessions that he should have had. And whatever you think about those guys, they show up and they do the job. And Jeff Percaro will be the first one to admit that his favorite drummer was Jim Gordon.
Did you guys know Jim Gordon, who he is? How many people here know the name Jim Gordon? He's a big guy, and he's, to me, the best drummer in the world. The best. And he was the #1 studio drummer in this town for years. The #1 guy did, oh God, man, I can't even begin to name all the people he did. He did the Steely Dan Pretzel Logic album, Carly Simon, You're So Vain, on and on and on. Low Spark and High Heel Boys, Traffic, Clapton, Delaney and Bonnie, best drummer in the world, the best. His drums, nobody's drums sounded better. Nobody grooved better than this guy.
He was the best there was. But Jeff would pick up those gigs. Of course he would. I would too. And then secondly, let me tell this story. He was working with Burton Cummings in Toronto. Burton Cummings was one of the lead singers of the Guess Who. And it says that he did a couple of takes on a tune. The producer calls everybody into the control room to listen to the playback. And Jim doesn't come into the control room. And when they look out into the studio, Jim is having a conversation with invisible people that aren't there. And so the sound guy hits the button so we can hear, and Jim is having an argument with invisible people. And I don't know about you, but that would give me the heebie-jeebies. I would think, all right, this guy needs help. This guy needs help. I don't know if I want to book him again. And what happens is, little by little, the phone stops ringing. And so he gets depressed because the thing that he loves the most, he's not able to do anymore. So he starts doing more drugs and more booze. But he does take a little control. He checks himself into the Van Nuys psychiatric facility in the late 70s, and they give him medication to help. And he tells those people about the voices, and they give him medication. But in those days, the medication would work for a little while, then it wouldn't work, then it would work, then it wouldn't work. When it stopped working, he'd go back to the drugs, round cycle. But he could not get a handle on this, and the psychiatrist was so worried that the psychiatrist tells his mom and tells his ex-wife, Jill, I'm worried. You guys should go to the police and get restraining orders. I'm worried about if Jim has an episode, what he might do. And of course, back in those days, things are worse than they are now. And the police tell them he hasn't done anything yet, and there's nothing we can do except maybe give you a restraining order. If you think this isn't bad enough, it's now going to take a turn for the worse. The moment that changes his life forever. If you need to skip over this, I'll chapter start it so you can. This is going to get gruesome. Here we go. So as we round the corner at 1980, the fact that he could hardly find any work except for a little local blues band called the Blue Monkeys around town. It's the kind of band that I might have joined when I first got to Michigan to get known. Those are the only people, and they were more glad to have him because they knew who he was or who he had been. So they were willing to put up with a lot of problems. Because his fall from grace was so high, because of that disease, the voices begin to take a turn for the worse, a much darker turn. And through the beginning of the 80s, the voices start telling him that the reason his career is in shambles is because his mom, using witchcraft or telepathy, was ruining his career. And that his mom would ruin the life of anyone she came into contact with because she was evil. And the voices would tell him this, and then finally, 1983 rolls around and the voices start telling him, you will never be free if you don't kill your mom. Your mom will destroy the life of anyone she comes in contact with. You must kill your mom. You must kill your mom. By the way, I don't know if I said it before, but her name is Osa. She lived in an apartment not too far from where Jim lived. Finally, on the morning of June 3rd, 1983, and believe me, folks, this story, among other stories in my life, changed my belief to believing we were just wires in here, just nothing but wires, to believing there's something more than the wires. Because Jim desperately did not want to kill his mom. He did not want to do it, but the voices would not stop. So on the morning of June 3rd, before I do this, let me show you the picture. This is what Jim looked like in prison. This is not the same as those happy pictures I've been showing you this whole video. That's a tormented soul. The morning of June 3rd, Jim calls his mom. Now, he hadn't spoken to her at all in about 3.5 years. He calls his mom and he says, Mom, have no contact with me. If you have any contact with me at all, I'll kill you. And the police had told her, anytime he contacts you, write down everything he says and you say. So his mom did and writes this down. She tells him that she'll be thinking about him, that she loves him. Basically. Other things too, but that's what she says. They hang up. He calls her right back, says, Mom, I'm telling you, no matter what you do, have no contact with me or I will kill you. It's as if he's fighting with himself. And the very last words his mom ever says to him in her life, that we know, is, Son, I promise you, you will never hear from me again. So in a desperate attempt to keep from doing something terrible to his mom, he goes to the Van Nuys Health Facility where he had been and checks himself in voluntarily. Maybe to get them to change around his medication, to do something. But his doctor isn't available. They can't find him. We're not totally sure of what exactly happens here in the story, but somehow the hospital can't help him, at least that day. They give him the opportunity of staying, but he doesn't stay. He ends up frustrated as the voices get louder and louder, and he checks himself out. Now, the rest of what I'm about to tell you is what the police think happened. These are public records. To the best of our knowledge, at this point, he goes home and gets a hammer and a knife. He goes to Osa's apartment. Osa's his mom. I'm not sure if I told you her name. Her name is Osa. He goes to her apartment with the knife and with the hammer. He pushes the door open. The police think she was sitting in her rocking chair. She sees him. She jumps up from the chair and she jumps behind the chair, possibly in an effort to defend herself. With Jim's left hand, he grabs her arm. He hits her in the head with the hammer. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and she falls to the ground. The voices don't stop. He hears her whimpering. And the voices tell him, according to Jim's diary, if you don't kill her, she'll never stop trying to destroy you. As long as she's alive, she'll never stop trying to destroy you. So he takes the knife he had with him, and plunges it into her chest, also 4 times. So hard on the 4th time that the point of the knife sticks into the floorboards. The voices finally quiet down and his mom has stopped breathing. Yes, he has succumbed to the desires of those voices. Is there a human agency? I don't know. I don't know. But the fact that Jim did all those things, trying to check himself into the hospital, tells me there was something more than wiring going on up here, trying to stop what was about to happen. But it happened, and he killed his mother. But as of yet, he has no remorse. He has no feeling. He steps over her body. He walks to the nearest gas station. His clothes and his face and his hands are full of blood. He washes the blood to the best of his ability off the face and his hands, and he goes to the local bar, the local blues bar, as a matter of fact, to sit and have a beer. Osa's next door neighbor, Osa's Jim's mom, saw Jim entering the premises and saw him leave. She's got a funny feeling. She goes to check on her friend, and she sees her lying there. She's lying by the rocking chair. She immediately runs back home and calls the police. Doesn't take long. Jim was on foot. The police catch him. As the police are putting him in the squad car, he keeps saying over and over, and he says it continuously for a very long period of time, that if he did not kill his mom, she would have not only tormented him, but tormented anyone she came in contact with, that he was trying to help people by killing his mom, that he did the only thing that was right to do, to kill his mom. And he says this over and over and over. Finally, he gets to trial, and a judge, by reason of insanity, gives him 16 years in a psychiatric facility. Because he's in that psychiatric facility, a very regimented lifestyle, they get to adjust the medication till it works just the right way. Jim slowly comes to his senses. We don't know if he ever gets rid of the voices completely, but they lessen to some degree. Here is the thing that amazes me. After 16 years, he comes up for parole. He's not denied. He denies it. He refuses parole for another 22 years. So for a 16-year sentence, he serves 38 years. And the reason he gives in his diary and to attorneys, that he was afraid that if he got out, he would stop taking his meds and he might hurt someone else. So once again, that wiring that was all screwed up, something greater than that was able to take control and say, no, you need to stay in here. And he walks away from that lifestyle that he had, being known as one of the greatest session drummers that ever lived, and never goes back for 38 years. He dies in prison on March 13th, 2023 at 77 years old. This country has 2 problems with mental health. One of them, I call it the cowboy culture. In other words, you never need help. You never need to ask for help. You're the cowboy. You can handle anything. That's the cowboy culture. So those of us that are hurting, when we are hurting, we're afraid to talk to anybody. Because if we do, we're admitting that we need help. And the cowboy culture says, no, you don't need help. You never need help. The cowboy does it on his own. That's one problem with mental health. The second problem is our system. Every other industrialized nation in the world has been able to figure out how to give health care to its citizenry. Everyone has some kind of universal health care except us. Our universal health care should also include mental health. Because as far as I'm concerned, as the mind goes, the body will follow. As the mind goes, the body will follow. Even way back when I had the best insurance, there was no coverage over mental health. When I worked for Carnival Cruise Lines, that was the best health insurance I ever had. There was no rider for mental health. No. And I have mental health issues. I have bad anxiety. Some of the other musicians joke around here that I never go out unless I have a gig. Hey, we're having a party for this one, a party for that one. I don't show up because when I have to go, I'm in the mirror for 3, 4, 5 hours practicing what I'm going to say. I've been on 3 dates in the last 3 or 4 years because when I go on a date, all I can think of is did I say something wrong? Did I talk too much about myself? Did I not talk enough about myself? Was I too quiet? Was I too loud? So much. I can't stop thinking about it. I sit in front of the mirror practicing what I'm going to say because I'm scared to death of people. But if I play 5 nights a week, I'm fine. In this country, I'm sad to say, the Democrats do not fight for us to get health care, and the Republicans fight against it. I think there should be, depending on the size of the school, 1, 2, or 3 psychologists in every school to help with the teenagers. Maybe not for grade school, but at least high school. The Republicans just lost one of their top guys, their top spokespeople. Maybe if Tyler Robinson, who was Charlie Kirk's assassin, if he was able to go get help, maybe Charlie Kirk would still be alive. We don't know, but maybe he would be. And folks, this number I've had along the bottom of this for this whole video is the National Alliance for Mental Illness. If you dial that number, they will point you in the direction of mental health care that's either free or affordable. The holidays are coming and the suicide rate in this country goes through the roof. Please don't be a cowboy. If you are hurting, it's okay to need help. John Lennon wrote the song Help.
I mean, I go into these troughs every few years. It was less noticeable in the Beatles because the Beatles' image and thing would carry you through it, you know. I mean, I was in the middle of a trough in Help, you know, but you can't see it really. I mean, I'm singing Help for a kickoff, but it was less noticeable because you're protected by the image of the power of the Beatles.
If you're hurting this Christmas, this Thanksgiving, call the number. Don't be a statistic. I'm going to leave you with Eric Clapton, just a video without the sound so I don't get a copyright strike of Jim Gordon playing. This is a sad video. See you on the next one, guys. I'll be back on the kit.